This is Matthew Kratter's Bitcoin University. Today I want to answer the question, is Luke Dashjr planning to fork Bitcoin? A little bit of background, Bitcoin Core supporters have completely lost the public debate over the past few weeks. Bitcoin Knots adoption is skyrocketing, and both Michael Saylor and the chairman of Binance have been tweeting about Bitcoin Knots. So it makes sense that Core supporters would become increasingly desperate in their attacks, resorting to fake news, character assassination. That's what they did to me a couple weeks ago, a bunch of weird incels calling a family man like me a pedophile, simply because I've been warning people that what happened to BSV when they blew open their op return filter is probably going to happen to Bitcoin too when Core 30 is released. You have to understand that accusations like this are beyond the pale. They have the potential to completely ruin my life, and there's literally nothing more heinous that you can accuse someone of. These are sick people making these accusations. They also accuse Bitcoin Mechanic, another good family man with young children, of the same stuff. Then there's Jameson Lopp's attack on Luke Dashjr's character that we covered in yesterday's video called Jameson Lopp on Bitcoin Knots. And a lot of people understood what was going on here. As this commenter says, Lopp comes off as a bitter loser. Adam Back looks like he's drifted off, of course. And another Matthew here telling Jameson Lopp, holy geez, you guys are desperate. So people are seeing through this character assassination strategy. As Mechanic points out too, they really thought they had something with this one today that we're going to be talking about. These kind of attacks put me in a really bad position because if I ignore them, then people may assume that the accusations are true. But if I talk about them in order to refute them, then I'm basically providing free publicity for bad actors, a la the Streisand effect. So please understand what's going on if I choose in the future not to cover all of these frivolous attacks, but I am choosing to cover this one. This is from The Rage. Leaked, Luke Dashjr plans hard fork to save Bitcoin. Text messages show the Knots maintainers considering a hard fork to implement a trusted multi-sig committee that can retrospectively alter the blockchain to remove illicit content. I'll put a link to this in the description notes below if you really need to take a look at it. I would suggest not giving these people any more publicity than they've already been getting. A few obvious points about the article after you've read it. Number one, nobody can unilaterally or secretly fork Bitcoin. It actually requires vast amounts of publicity and public coordination to make a fork happen. If you fork Bitcoin without widespread support, you end up alone with a dead chain and a dead network. Number two, so it goes without saying that there's no quote-unquote secret hard fork code embedded in Bitcoin Knots. The software remains fully open source. It's also 99% the same as Bitcoin Core. If Luke changes the software in some way that we don't like in the future, we can just keep running the current version of Bitcoin Knots that we're running now and not upgrade, or we can switch to another implementation. Maybe Bitcoin Core will have gotten its act together by then, or maybe there'll be a third implementation. So this gives us flexibility. But the real irony here is that it's been Bitcoin Core that's actually been changing the software. It hasn't been Luke changing the software. It's been Bitcoin Core changing the software in ways that nobody likes. As Chad Pleb points out here, people saying about Luke, oh no, he'll do something nefarious, don't run Knots. My guys, you're already doing something, talking about Bitcoin Core, you're already doing something nefarious by making default op returns 100 kilobytes and marking it to be deprecated. Actions versus words. And we've been talking on this channel about how many times Luke Dashjr has saved Bitcoin. This is another thing to keep in mind. If you're finding this video interesting so far, I just pause really briefly here to ask you to help to support the channel. Hit the subscribe button, that does really help. Leave a like, leave a comment, question, suggestion for a future video, and share this video with a friend or family member. So point number three I wanted to make, both Luke and Bitcoin Knots supporters have been saying for months that we're not interested in forking. Mechanic has pointed out that forking is the wrong tool for the job. It's really mempool policy that's the correct tool here, at least so far, since mempool policy is flexible, easy to change on the fly in order to thwart spammers. All we're really asking for here is to keep the same mempool filters that Bitcoin has had for the past decade. That's not how revolutionaries talk. It's actually the Bitcoin Core devs and their supporters that want to change Bitcoin, and that's what we're fighting against. Now, a few hours before this hit piece was published on Luke just happened to post a statement on forks in which he says right here, if we have community support, no fork is necessary. If we don't, no fork is possible. It's a really nice way of putting it. And as Bitcoin Motorist points out here, the ultimate irony being that only one side, and that's the Bitcoin Core side, has been begging and rooting for a hard fork, and it hasn't been the not side that's been doing it. Bitcoin Anon points out the same thing here. I was amused by the insincerity of the outrage. Core is the only one that has been wanting knots to fork, and now they feign their shock after fabricating it. Lol. Now, what's interesting is even some anti-knots Bitcoiners are seeing this attack on Luke for what it really is. Jonas Schnelly, who looks like was a former Bitcoin dev and even maintainer from 2013 to 2021, he writes in this post, "I'm heavily opposed to knots and filters, but claiming, quote, that Luke plans a hard fork after some brainstorming in a chat is also an overstretch. Relax and enjoy the debate." So he clearly sees through this character assassination. In fact, the Rage's attack on Luke in this article, it's so implausible and off base that even some pro-spam people like Udi, for example, are standing up for Luke this time around. I don't want to read this whole post, but it's actually quite high quality. Udi writes, "I read the Luke Dashjr hit piece," and he calls it a hit piece, which is the correct name for this. Udi writes, "It's wrong. Basically, the entire article is wrong. I'm obviously not on Luke's side, but guys, this is just sloppy, low-quality propaganda piece. First of all, sharing private messages is not cool for many obvious ethical reasons, but one reason that's often overlooked is that sharing private messages often puts them out of context, etc., etc." And then he goes through and basically dissects this piece and points out how even the text messages cited don't demonstrate anything. Giacomo Zucco has a similar defense, calling this article disgusting and obvious distortion, and then goes on to write, "The first part is nothing that even remotely resembles the outlandishly dishonest title, and nothing that Luke Dashjr didn't say publicly before hundreds of times since forever." And then he has a couple links in which Luke is talking about similar things. Beautyon has a great comment as well. "The most interesting part of this is that the people who want the opportune change don't have any arguments, and so they're attacking the man, namely Luke Dashjr, and lying. This change in tactic, conspiracy theories, attribution of bad motivations, this change in tactic signals that they, the Bitcoin Core devs and their supporters, know that they've lost the debate on the facts and are now shifting ground. The bottom line is this: no one wants to run a version of Bitcoin that allows arbitrary file storage. Core has two choices: relent, revert, and remain the reference client and its maintainers, or carry on and be abandoned. The two central points are these: the grave responsibility of maintaining Bitcoin and the purpose of Bitcoin itself. I like Asher Hop's comment here as well. If you thought Luke Dashjr submitted a PR, a pull request, or a BIP, Bitcoin improvement proposal for a Bitcoin hard fork yesterday, you failed an IQ test. The RAG, formerly known as the Rage, is just another fake news scam factory. Ignore it like you do with the rest of the mainstream media. Thank you for your attention to this matter." And I would add to that, I really do regret donating and encouraging others to donate to Lola Elites and the Rage in the past, and I will not be making that mistake again. That's because if I want humorless fake news, I already have my favorite free source, which is Jimmy Kimmel. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.